May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, as is always the case these days, at least since I've started doing that, Annette Lorenzo. And Annette practiced at the San Francisco Zen Center in this century. And she went back to Ohio because she had a problem from falling down in Tassajara. And she'll tell you about that. But she's done a lot of things in her life. They're not even all included in this podcast. I couldn't get a complete picture of it. You know, she'd just be talking, and then she'd say, at one point toward the end, and I think this isn't in it, she said, but you know, I'm just a girl from New York. I said, what, New York? You haven't mentioned New York before. And she's just all over the place. And she's done a lot of things, and she's got a lot of energy. And so there she was in Ohio, and she started doing online stuff rather energetically, and I got to know her because my wife, Katrinka, kept telling me about Soto Zen Warrior on Instagram. So, you know, there's Instagram Cuke Archives. You know, I always see that. And then I noticed that Soto Zen Warrior is reposting some of the Cuke Archives posts and other things Suzuki related and other stuff. It's all pretty neat. So at a certain point, I started writing her, contacting her. Then I said, hey, let's do a podcast. So that's what happened. She's also, she's on Facebook as, you know, she has one with her personal with her name, but she's got another one, Accidental Buddhist, on Facebook, and but she calls it fem art or art fem, so it's sort of feminism and art, and she's been very interested in art and art in Buddhism, and anyway, you'll hear what she has to say. Oh, I want to add something here. Somewhere in there, I thought I marked the time, but I can't find it, and I'm not going to look for it anymore. I said Crooked Cucumber deals with 500 people, or there's data on 500 people on Crooked Cucumber. No, I meant to say it in Cuke Archives, on Cuke.com. Yeah, you can see the names. We have most of them there, I think. If you look at the people drop-down menu, and then the top thing says names, there's like over 500 names there. And most of them have links. Some of them just have a little, some initials after them, where they're mentioned in there, or something like that. Anyway, when you hear Crooked Cucumber mentioning 500 people, please go Oh, no, that's not true. It's Kook Archives uh, has stuff on 500 people. You could send me the time when you hear that, and I'll go back and change the audio, maybe. So, well, that's enough, huh? So, listen, after we've had our pause to meditate, let's give her a call. So when you hear the bell, if you have such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause, and we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever. And we'll give Annette Lorenzo a call.
Hello, this is Annette.
Yeah, hi there.
Hi. Hi, good to hear from you.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. What time is it your time?
9 p.m.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you for making the call.
Yeah, thank you for answering. I was very eager to speak with you. So, what are you up to these days?
Well, I have left the monastery, Tassajara, and so I'm in solo practice right now and focusing on online sangha, and then doing research that I have ideas for it in academic format or also in just historical format. And my master's work was in public administration, and my focus was on liberal religions in America. And at that time, I was a Unitarian Universalist, dealing with my own. I was like the president of my fellowship, and then I worked on regional state leadership topics. And that got me interested in, having come from conservative religions, it got me interested in the different dynamics of the organization styles and their relationship with government and regulations. And so I'm kind of doing that with a historical view of Soto Zen Buddhism in America. And it's just an angle that I've always appreciated looking at in regards to, religious formulas in America. So I'm kind of a nerd.
You're a good nerd. You're a good nerd. Please, nerd away. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
You're a Soto Zen warrior on Instagram is very good. Very good. I see frequently you have posts about Suzuki Roshi, and it's anyway. It's well done. Well done.
Well, thank you. I think that I should put credit where credit is due. It's because your Cube archive is just the only pure, being able to track Suzuki Roshi and his American influence. And, and so I borrow a lot from that. And I see myself continuing with following him. Because in some way I feel like if you know Suzuki Roshi and the San Francisco Zen Center development, you pretty much understand American Buddhism.
Huh.
So, and I think Roshi, because of the books that you wrote and some earlier transcribing, if that's the right word, of his material,
Yeah.
I just think there's a lot of ways to continue to bring him forward. And then you're doing that by doing the Instagram too. So I feel akin to your formula. And then I do appreciate art, both whatever I create or just the Buddhist art. And so my Instagram, I think it's 3 years old now, maybe 4.
Oh, is that right?
It originally started with me in San Francisco. Just it was more for my Buddhist art because I've studied that. I'm like John Dory. I was at Zen Mountain Monastery for a while.
Oh yeah.
And his art and creativity is an expression of Buddhism. Really caught my eye. And then he co-wrote a number of books that had to deal with Zen art. And so when I was at the monastery, I used those books because, they have a great library there. So there was great resources. And so I've been studying, I could just call it a study because I reimagined the historical art pieces. And I just think that visual art is a wonderful way to teach Buddhism. But then it just developed into more of, it seemed like my posts for like a year or two then turned into some very strong teaching narratives within the pictures. And then it's just become what it's become. But I thank you for saying what you're saying. And I'm surprised how I feel like people are basically tapped into it. The followers are very consistent, and I have an approach to how what goes into the post and then what goes into the stories. And the stories is to reach a wider network because, Buddhism, we're just into mindfulness and we're just into wellness and yoga. So anyhow, I could talk forever.
Oh, please do. I like it. I want to say one thing about Instagram Cuke Archives is that my associate, Peter Ford, does that. He is the managing director of Cuke Archives now, and I'm on special projects. He's the one who's made ShunyaSuzuki.com such a fabulous database of Suzuki's lecture audio and transcripts. I mean, I had it, but before he was helping me, I had it there. But he really understands databases and knows so much, and really he's upgraded, and he's always upgrading Cuke Archives in it, and it's vast. So anyway, I just wanted to make that clear.
Well,
but
I remember at first it became obvious to me that he was partaking in that, and I follow his work in different modes. So yeah, I forgot that though, and I think that it is because I would like to have something. I feel like your Cuke and the Instagram, I think all that is a full circle online information base where you can go for, these little clips on Instagram, and then Cuke you can go in for study, deep study, and I mentioned that a lot. And so I do have a blog, but I haven't integrated it yet, and I hope to have that. And to be honest with you, I have a big ego, is that I would like to, the Drudge Report, his format, I would love to do that for Soto Zen. I would just to have that type of link. I try to do that through.
Well, just do what you're doing. You do it. Don't do it for anybody else. Just do it yourself. Things get done like this by individuals who get into doing it, and don't put it under any institution, they'll smother it.
I agree, because institutions are they have their hand in the pot. Your group is so focused, and I hope that I can mimic that, because I really don't want an institution over me right now. Yeah.
Well, maybe what you'll do will at some point have to become get some sort of institutional form, and then you'll bring it to where you can, and and then you'll want to set it up so that it continues. That's a really hard thing to figure out how to do.
Because it's just kind of, I would not have thought that I would have gone in the direction when I first started it to what it is now, because I really thought it was going to be a Buddhist art study. But the topic became bigger, and then the audience began to have more questions, and so I do believe in just letting it roll. And I do the morning post following meditation and study, and I never know what I'm gonna study, because I pull up Instagram and I follow the different directives, and my biggest I think thrill is I follow people's hashtags, and their hashtags are so educational. And I've taught online for years, and I did an Instagram, Facebook online really early on, and my goal was not to try to have like 1,000 likes. My goal was to be able to direct people into different levels of study. And so some people just are great with it. And so whatever comes up after I'm sitting, I feel like it's like this online Dharma talk, mini Dharma talk. And I think, I know that you're, because I follow you, and I see that in one of your podcasts, you were being interviewed, and you talked about how your practice has changed, and when you sit and when you don't sit, and how you keep in connection with America Sanghas. So I think there's a lot of room to grow, but to keep it pure and simple is my hope. But I also know the other day, Amazon and Facebook are very aggressive once they see that you get a little large population base, and so they're offering me this type of business platform, and they're offering me to sell this type of thing, and I want to run it. I want to continue to think of it as a nonprofit type of entity. So, and then I was thinking that because I am being approached with a lot of different offers right now, and I just think that at any time I could pull a Forrest Gump and just stop running, for no reason, and that could happen. That could happen with this too.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter if it's for profit or non-profit. It's just how it's done. Non-profit, you still got to get your money from somewhere. Kook Archives is non-profit.
Okay.
But
what do you?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and I think that I really love that the wind bell's on there.
Yeah.
Because it's got such historical information, and if you have an understanding of Sangha, American Sanghas, and Deep Drink, and just all of that, I think it makes you understand what we're doing today. So I go in there a lot, and I read the wind bell, and everything. And the wind bell was so uncensored. It is a dialogue around members, and you don't really have that in America. So I think there's a lot to pull from that. You have Suzuki Roshi, you have the wind bell, you have his lectures, and then you have the books. And I'm thinking that your books are sold on Amazon, and that I think I've seen that. And
sure, they're Crooked Cucumber is Random House, and Thank You and Okay is Shambhala, was originally Penguin, and they're sold wherever books are sold. And Zen is right now, and Zen is right here, are Shambhala.
Okay, because I was trying to look to see, what publisher you was with that, and I recently I've really been trying to focus on Zen classics, and and so I would like to kind of bring those books as first reads. I know that Zen Monastery is real good with putting the right books in front of people. And there's really, a long time ago, I saw this one publisher of Buddhist books that identified first level, second level, third level, fourth, academic. And I think that that's really beneficial, especially to those that because who really knows how they're introduced to Buddhism? Because I was a yoga teacher, and then I had to learn Tai Chi, and then I was a massage therapist. So those different formats brought me to sitting, brought me to. So what I'm saying is there's so many different avenues, and I think that the original books, that came out of San Francisco, are transferable, and you hear the same language being used in all these pop culture type of circling interest in that. So, I think that with the online presence and knowing how different sanghas bring in different people, like the school kids or the college kids. So that's how my content's developed. I want to try to target each one of those groups in some formula during the week. But and I follow. I mean, there's some real great. There's some people on Instagram that are thoroughly technicians in it and thoroughly have advanced teachings. I do some advanced teachings once in a while, but that's where I'm thinking a blog will probably be better. But so I think there's all levels going on, and so can you tell me a little bit more how Cuke is? So Peter is doing.
In terms of the Instagram, I did. Shunryu Suzuki lecture excerpts for, God, I don't know, over a decade I've been doing it. I mean, it started out before there was a blog. Then Peter kept telling me, get a blog. I should get Blogger. He suggested Blogger. So I finally did. And so I started off right away doing, I guess, lecture excerpts. It was a while back. But right. I mean, I just continued it on the blog. And then the blog became What's New. And I'd had a What's New since, I don't know, I started the website at the end of 98. So the What's New started sometime in 99. Then when we got the blog, What's New moved to the blog. If you click What's New on Cuke.com, you go to the blog. And then when Peter started the Instagram one, that was my wife, Katrinka. It was the one that turned me on to you, because she does a lot more. She's a lot more active than I am. I'm so busy working on my stuff that I spend as little time as possible doing anything else. So she kept telling us, you got to do Instagram, you got to do it. And Peter went, well, I don't know. I went, ah. So we finally did, and it turned out that she was right. Very good. Now she wants us to pay more attention to Twitter.
Well, I agree. I didn't mean to interrupt you because I really want to know the formula. Is that I do cross post. Twitter really has been a good response. TikTok has surprised me, and TikTok is somewhat a little more. I can only do TikTok after I do Instagram because Instagram is my silent morning practice, and then in the afternoon I'll go to TikTok. But I've gotten into the habit of cross-posting, and that just seems to be really beneficial. And now I just want to I need to advance my skills a little more so that way it's easier. Mm-hmm. And I want to find there are different platforms where you can just have all of your sites between Facebook and blog.
Yeah.
So that's what I think will be beneficial for growing it.
Yeah. Now, the Instagram post goes to Facebook Cuke Archives, and the What's New posts we're going to Facebook Cuke Archives. So what we did just recently is that it is made them the same. So now, Peter, I just stopped recently doing a lecture excerpt. So Peter's just doing the same excerpt on Instagram and Cuke Archives. Cuke What's New. And it doesn't go to Facebook anymore because the Instagram one does, and it's much better done. It's got a nice picture. And then I'm doing occasional other posts. I'm actually on a retreat now to finish Dasara stories. That's why. And I stopped doing 6 podcasts a week. I'm only doing 1 a week.
Well, yeah. Well, your wife had sent me a few messages on Instagram, and I was just tickled, that she did, and so that yes, I was really pleased with that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because people, how they say that we're attracted to likeness and we're attracted to things that are going to be with us, like you say, what's new, and then what's going forward. So I feel in the collection of media that you're using, I think it shows both of that, historically, what's new, and what's coming up. Mm-hmm. And online, you can do that more, but, and you're kind of guiding these people and to however they want to approach the Zen, it's on there online. And I think that's easier to do than on a brick and mortar type of Sangha.
Yeah.
And what I try to also do is I like to post Sangha stories throughout the world. And I just think it shows us just how diverse, Soto Zen Buddhism is, and then all the different ways people practice, the different ways they honor their altar, the different ways they show their need. And that probably and it's somewhat of an advertisement for each one of these Sanghas that I scroll. And so sometimes in the morning, I'm only, after my study, I'm scrolling for what's new, who's doing a retreat, who's got a new book. And I think that has really complemented study. And so with that, I've gained an international Buddhist audience, which amazes me. It just amazes me because I consider Soto Zen a little niche, and I wasn't expecting that type of need. But the only time in it ever Sanghas get noticed is through, the hard copy magazines. And there's no real avenue for us to share Sangha community, and so that's what I think his garden has given me the why, like the bigger systems like TikTok and Facebook, Twitter are attracted to the site because it's like it looks like this is modest little thing, but because I consider it a global study, it attracts people. That doesn't mean they stay with me forever, but they surely appreciate the shout out, and they're getting people going to their Zoom meetings. And so part of this, I think, is because of, the virus we had and everybody was staying in, and all of a sudden everybody has, a visual, virtual Sangha. And so that really has changed the dynamics of Buddhism. And I think and I think that, and when I look at Zen, and not particularly Soto Zen, when you look at that and you look how it's formulated in America, it's definitely been very pop cultural driven in many fashions. Yeah. And then there seems to be different directions. And I think San Francisco development, you could follow that where I've talked to some old timers and they've talked about the different decisions the board had to make in regards to will it be a study group, will it be a more of a media group, will it be a development group, all those different things. So I just think that, it might be boring, but I think, it probably is time to look at, Soto Zen Buddhism as an institution in America, and how is it, and that's kind of more of a cute type of topic, I think, or because I think that's what's new. Because you remember, or I don't know, there's a period in America where we had a movement called deinstitutionalization. It's when we took the people that were held in large mental health and mental retardation facilities, state facilities, and we brought them into the community. And that was in the 70s, and that was my first job. And so
now tell me what it was called again.
It was called deinstitutionalization.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, I was very familiar with it, and I was familiar with the work of, what's his name, Thomas Saz?
Yeah.
And he wrote a book called, I can't remember what it was called, but it was about how it is wrong to hold people against their will if they're not dangerous.
Right.
And that and the advent of so many of these new, I don't know what you call them, behavior drugs that help people adjust to normal society, that brought about this enormous reduction in the population of the mental hospitals. And I had some involvement with that too.
It was my first job out of college. I was like 20, running a county agency, and I was running residential homes. And there were people in Ohio, and there's people that probably have our same type of age difference, and that your age group have been my mentors throughout my life. And so I had some really great mentors. But through that experience of deinstitutionalization, I'm going back to why I think it's important to study how the system of it, because that really taught me how things are developed and all the different players between for-profit, non-profit, between, how does a system, and I think Zen definitely is a movement, that it has different regulations it has to apply to. And then that goes back to my study of liberal religions, is that they do not want to follow policy. They do not want to follow regulations. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? And then what does it mean that Soto Zen Buddhism has a national association, but it's only for priests? And there's not an organization. And if you cannot really represent novice priests or or people coming into a Sangha not knowing things, and as far as what is this organization. So having a live study of the deinstitutionalization movement and watching a movement develop from state to region to community to home-based, it follows the Sangha system. And I just think that, I think after 40 years or 50 or 60 years, a system is due for an organization evaluation. And then again, I'm nerdy, but remember, I believe in, it's always, the individual and the institution, and how are those two formed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm concerned we don't have an internal Soto Zen, kind of association for the Sanghas. Because you see, when you look at it, just within domestic terms, it varies so much. And so students sometimes find themselves having to go from one Sangha to another Sangha and starting all over again. And yet some of the Sanghas identify themselves as schools, which require curriculums, which require tradition. So that might really be weird conversation, David. I don't know, but that's
No, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm on special projects. I'm going to work on the book I'm working on. I'm going to work on creating new material. And there is there's one thing I do want to there's a number of things I want to continue to. One is editing the audio, the Shunryu Suzuki audio. I've just started doing that this year. And it had never been done. And anyway, but what were you going to ask?
How did you start? I mean, because, to me, you're the king of all that, and so the early writing, the books that you did, and then you continue to do that. I don't have that discipline. That requires a really great deal of discipline and knowing how to transfer information. I don't know how to do that. My material is more sterile.
Well, look, you know how to do plenty. What you're doing is good. Just keep following. Just keep doing just do what you want to do. Just keep following it. Oh, I think we need this. I think we need that. You're talking about this Sangha group. Just keep talking about it and, stating the need for it, and it'll come about.
Well, thank you. The way I keep captioning it in my head is that this would be a great thesis topic. It would be. It's worth it. I think. When you look at the different Buddhist colleges in America, it's on liturgy, it's on historical factors, but it's nothing on like the full development of it. And a lot of the early, in the ancient writings and the tracking of Buddhism, there's a lot of talk about the integration between Buddhism and politics. And we're missing. I think we're missing that, and I think that it's just like as an English professor, I would tell my students that you really never know what a book's telling you until you know the culture of that time. And I kind of think that with our Soto Zen, because I don't think many people understand the Beat generation and how that impacted the development, and it all ties together. And when I was at Tassajara, the young men, 20s, coming into, and then sometimes during the summer practice period, they were so attracted to the poets. They were attracted, and I thought it's like, and some of them were just attracted to the architecture. And so I just think that there's so many different ways that we're not really telling the next generation this whole picture of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
just like you knew what happened in deinstitutionalization. And remember, Geraldo Rivera did a major video reporting of an institution, and that changed everything. So, yeah. So you have a book that you're going to be publishing.
What? Me?
Is that right?
Well, I'm just working on Tassajara stories. That's it. I want to finish it. And I've got some other things I'm wrapping up too. Yeah, the number one immediate goal is to finish Tassajara stories, and we'll see.
Is that like Tassajara stories of when you were engaged with it, or is it
everything? But it's the title, the working title, is Tassajara Stories: The Early Years with Shunryu Suzuki.
Good.
And it focuses on students and on stuff that happened. And so we'll see how it goes. I'll, I've read I've written about 100 pieces for it. Every one of them was read into a podcast. So that's the material I'm working with. I guess I read them all last year.
How are you getting your information out? I mean, because I think that if there's a clear entrance into, you online, not just your material, but on you, the author, the Buddhist, I just want to say, whoa, we need to put you up front in order.
There's tons about me on kook.com. There's this absolute enormous amount. There's tons of stuff I've written. There's tons about me. We don't need more about me. There's a lot about me in Thank You and Okay. There's some about me in Crooked Cucumber. There's plenty about me in Tassajara Stories. Now it's maybe you don't know where to go for it, but there's an enormous.
That's where you're more advanced than I am, because you are the type of teacher that I would, I understand the different levels of.
I'm what? I'm what?
You're different levels, and you're at a different level than I am, and communication.
I don't see it that way.
All communication has levels. Like if you take wellness, it's got the introduction, the popular stuff, then it has marketing stuff, then it has academic stuff, and then it has original content. And you're an original content person.
And I'm really interested in that. But also, I love doing these guests, podcasts with guests. I mean, Crooked Cucumber has material on like 500 people.
Wow.
I call it Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his. And it's not just crossed, it's crossed, so it includes you. It's like this whole phenomena of that's, all the, him coming to America. What did he come into? What's come out of that? What were those people into? Right. It's an enormous, there's some words for it. But I can't remember what they are. It's a big thing.
Right,
he's just part of it.
How do you? Yeah, but that's like my thing. That early on in Buddhism, I saw this one publisher who did these different levels of content and knowledge base, and so Cuke is this high knowledge base, and it almost and so. And what Instagram's doing for you and your different things is pulling little segments of that archive out, and then it's in a different level of communication. It's in a different platform. And I'm just saying that I think that is useful to do. And because I think we're saying the same thing, but I'm just saying that I would love to continually see it go to some stay in Instagram or Twitter, or the two sentences that lead them to that. And I think I see that developing in your information base. And that's why I was asking about where is it distributed mostly at, online. And I think that with Amazon, if I did go with their business model and what they're suggesting for me, I think that I want to start with books, and I want to start with saying that this is an entry level, this is this, or this focuses on the architect. And then there's a whole avenue that John Dory did with the arts. There's like 10 probably special areas of that Cuke has all of them in. And it's like, well, how do we pull that out, and how do we direct people exactly to those different topics? But just think when you look at tea and calligraphy and the physicality of Buddhism, and so there's all these different strains that can go directly, that come from Cuke. That's what I see. And so I'm like, well, how do we just package that, and how do we put that into these different categories? And that's marketing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I marketing, and that's what I don't think that's really available, because I think the larger Buddhist institutions, they have a lot of products they're selling. A lot of products, whether they're workshops or, futons or whatever. And so I think that that's missing instead of Zen here, is that the marketing and even the hard copies, the topics are somewhat sterile, I think, and so judgmental. But I don't know, because I think that Cuke will live on forever.
Let's see. I don't think about market. I try not to know how many people are seeing anything. I try not to, I just try to get it down and get down what I feel like doing. And I've never been systematic. I just went to a little bit of college, I didn't even finish first year.
My friend and I were talking about you, and she's an academic too, and she's also, a practitioner and different things. And we were talking that you're a purist. You're the purist, and the content is the glory, and that's really intelligence, and that's really, so I don't think an academic background is needed. You definitely offer it.
Well, I appreciate academic backgrounds. It's just not my forte. I'm not even a good reader. People assume I've read all this stuff because I've written books.
Right. Well, so was it your relationship with Suzuki that got you so intimate with who he was and how to interpret that and showcase that? Are you more relationship oriented in regards to what you see?
I don't know. It's just one thing led to another. And, Peter Schneider called me Tassar's newspaper back when we started it, Okay. I mean, and I studied, I was the only, I was the only person living there who was studying the things he was lecturing on in Chinese and Japanese. And I went out and took an intensive course in Japanese. And then I made little, basic sort of translations of everything we chanted, and did character studies of Genjo Koan and the Fugazi Zingi. Like, I was always studying and doing things there. It's just it's just compulsion. Like, and so I always do stuff like that. When I was in Japan, I just started writing stuff. And so it just one thing led to another. Like somebody said, I got a question in Germany. I wasn't so much, oh, thank you for your devotion to Suzuki Roshi and blah, blah, blah. And I said, it's not devotion, it's compulsion.
Yeah, I
You know,
understand that.
just doing one thing
I
after
do.
another.
Yeah, I really understand that because I worry. I think about that sometimes with my online study and how I have this desire to, okay, this is what I'm studying, and here's what we can study, and so yeah, I worry about that too. And then sometimes I think that what has happened is because I do miss the physicality of a sitting sangha, sitting side by side. I miss the 7 day session, or just because of what happens on Wednesday. There's just predictable smells, and there's predictable mental states. And so some part of me does think that I'm trying to replicate that online, and there's different forms, and so I do kind of wonder what my intention is, and how do we. Yeah, so yours is a creative process. I think mine's a creative process, but I think mine is somewhat also a emotional process of knowing the benefits of Sangha, knowing the benefits of seeing faces that, across the world that are sitting, or that, how they do their food. And,
Well, the important thing is that you did it. You had the experience. You've had an experience of practicing with the Sangha, of doing sessions, practice periods, stuff like that. So that's important. And I'm not saying, maybe you can do it again. But not everybody's just going to keep living there. And it's like a university, say. Not everybody is going to stay at the university. They're going to go out and apply what they learned, or learn other things, or whatever. Hey, I want to ask you some things. Here's what I want to know is, so where were you born?
I was born in Buffalo, New York.
Describe it again, the type of religion you grew up with.
Well, because of my family situation, I was introduced to a lot of religions. So my first formal religion was Catholicism. And when I was young, the nuns somewhat took an interest in me, and they wanted to make me, like, they told me I had a nun pass, but so I've always been committed to and interested in religion. So it was Catholicism. I did the baptism and all that. And then my family.
At what age? What age?
Well, I was born into Catholicism.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I was born.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, and then my mother married a farm boy from Ohio. So we wound up in Cowtown, USA, and everybody was like Church of Christ. And so then I was baptized in Church of Christ, and Church of Christ was my first formal, was where I took my first formal role, and I was like the treasurer of that. And then from Church of Christ, I was going to go to a fundamental college, but I wound up going to a Swedenborg philosophy college.
Swedenborg, wow.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Johnny Appleseed was a Swedenborganist.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And we have the Johnny Appleseed Museum. Ha ha. So that was really a great mode. And then I went, and this sounds like a weird term. Then from that undergraduate work, Est was real popular. And so then Est
That's a jump.
Came into me.
That's a
It
jump.
was a jump, and I was afraid. I was still connected to Church of Christ Seminary, and then the Swedenborg allowed me to open up my thought, and so a lot of my friends, who were somewhat wealthy friends, we'd drive from this little cow town to Cincinnati every week or so, and so I got involved in Est, and Est really introduced me to things that brought me to Buddhism. But that Warner Earhart sold everything from Buddhism. So that's why it was an easy, entry into it. So then I wound up being a Unitarian Universalist. I raised my children as Unitarian Universalists, and that's where I was the president and on regional and state boards and that, because I'm a systems person. But the Unitarian Universalist group was very good for me, and I wanted to raise my children in a theology or philosophy where the biggest thing was just to ask questions. Because every religion that I was into thought their way was the only way, and I wanted my children to know there was many ways.
Yeah.
And then again, and then from there I went into yoga, and I went into massage therapy. I went into Tai Chi, and that just kept leading me towards this Asian philosophy, and that's how Buddhism just became a major thing for me. And it wasn't anything intentional. It's just that I've always had a need for some spiritual and somewhat non-logical thinking and guidance in my life. But I couldn't take it. I think I've always had concern about institutionalization of religion and internal thought. So I've always been somewhat cautious. But in Buddhism, my attention was driven to the fact that it was like this endless well of teachings. And, just the fact that geographically it India and China and Japan and, all these different cultures. And I think it's endless. I think that, I could sit and, so a rakasu and me moments, and then it goes into this macro thing. And I do believe that there's a reason why Buddhism has drawn the attention of so much of America, because there's this freedom to think, and there's this freedom to look for deeper knowledge. I mean, the concentration on ancestors and their knowledge is something that we don't have in our culture. And I think the rituals are just so dynamic. I remember just living through a few of those ceremonies at San Francisco Zen Center with Suzuki Roshi's picture up there on the mantle, and we're doing these chants to ancestors. And my grandmother turned up being, instead of Suzuki's picture, I saw my grandmother. And just, how many sensations do we have like that can bring us, in studying one ancestor, to get to know our own. So my ancestral home is Puerto Rico and Portugal. I could never say that, Portugal. So my family side is from Portuguese, and my mother's side is from Puerto Rico. And the name Lorenzo.
Cool. Are you saying your father's side is Portuguese and your mother's side is Puerto Rico?
Right.
Oh, right. Wow, that's neat.
And I didn't really understand that, because, like, when I was in Buffalo, people in Buffalo are more familiar with Indians, so people thought always asked me if I was Indians. I came to the Midwest, and everybody just thought I was black. And so I learned early on that whatever region I was in, the minority that was the dominant minority, that's who they thought I was. So, and that's true. So I've really had to be, sometimes it's not good when you know things too early in your life. They can overwhelm you, but I was lucky in a lot of fashions that I've had good people in my life. So that's my story. It's very multicultural, very different religions, and I think I've benefited from those different religions, because in the negative, religion is a device to separate, and in the positive, religion is a way to unite with yourself.
Yeah.
And I know that I've just started tutoring virtually online, and so I have all these interesting people from elementary to MBA to doctorate people that I tutor.
Yeah, I know you had a lot of extra time. You didn't know what to do, so you decided to start tutoring.
Right. So I'm rebuilding a life. How do you live forward in the moment? I just think it's important for me to.
Really, I did a double take when you said that. When you said start tutoring, I went, "Oh my God, when do you get time to do that?" But
Yeah.
That's like they say if you want to. I really noticed this, and I was talking to Katrinka about it. If you want something done, find a busy person. So often
Right. And
true.
the thing is that I'm pretty much, my life's always been busy. This one fellow that I used to date, great guy, but he was a little older and wiser, and he said that when he sees me, he sees a race car driver. Getting out of his car, and his jacket has like all these sponsors, and he said that's what my life is like. But I'm really paring it down. My key is, I think that online teaching, living is really where it's at, and the exposure that I have to people through that, I'm really grateful for. But I really monitor. I only allow myself to monitor, to tutor like 4 people at a time, and the
That's
group that
really
I'm with is
nice.
a typical institution.
That's really
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I think I'm building. Yeah.
And that gives you
So,
a direct one-on-one relationship with some people that way. That's nice.
yeah, yeah. And so you're going to continue doing what you're doing, right? And you're going into the future with all these new modalities, and you're bringing people with you, and I think it's important that you recognize, David, that you have a legacy that you're taking care of, and not just your own, but that of a whole generation. And so how do you make sure that, it's definitely caught my attention, but your age group has always been my teachers. And then how do we continue to show that to this new generation who thinks that their ideas are all new and better, but it still comes from, it still comes from history. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm just really grateful that you were even spending time with me. Well, yeah, I am.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, the feeling's mutual. That feeling's mutual. Yeah,
And I
indeed.
hear that you haven't been back to America for a while.
Yeah, I haven't been back since we left in 2013.
Wow.
Katrinka just landed today in Seattle, and let's see, you're 9, she's 6. Well, in a few hours, her daughter-in-law will be driving her to Bandon, Oregon. Oh,
Mm,
no, she's in Eugene. She flew from Seattle to Eugene and spent the night there. She went from Denpasar to Taipei to Seattle. That was all, and then to Eugene. That was all continuous, right? That's a lot of
wow.
fun. And then she got a place in Eugene, at the airport hotel, and slept. And then I
Right.
think her daughter-in-law picked her up, and they stayed together. And then in a few hours, Dakota, her daughter-in-law, will be driving her
Mm,
to Bandon,
mm-hmm.
and then she'll be there a month, and then she'll go hang out with my younger son and our other 2 grandchildren. Yeah, that's true. I haven't been back.
No, so you have grand. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you though. You said that I'm kind of taking you all over the map, but as you talk, I think, oh yeah, don't forget to ask. So, so you kind of famously gave up priesthood.
Well, not really.
Correct?
Being a Soto Zen priest it depends. It's like having a driver's license
Okay.
and not driving. They have a name for that in Japan. They call it paper driver. Paper driver. Paper driver. So I'm a paper priest. I know Catholic priests that are very much the same. They don't, really have a church, and they do individual study, or they're artists.
Well, see, that's because I'm one of them. I think that's my venue, and so I'm interested in that. But you were given priesthood, and I think like in 6 years of your practice, and that's kind of like what I calculated. And then, almost every reading identifies that. Then you stopped. However they word it. But the thing is that you continue being a teacher, and in some ways you probably have students that respond to you as a teacher, and I just think that's very interesting.
Well, I don't have
that
any
you,
students, and I don't think of myself as a teacher. You know, I got ordained because it was something to do with Suzuki Roshi. And I didn't really, I mean, Reb would try to tell me, you know, you have to be responsible now, you have to be an example. And what I say is, he might as well have been talking to the wall. And, you know, at a certain point, I realized I really didn't want to wear robes anymore. But it was great. I loved it. I loved it. And
right.
I don't really, you know, like I do retreats here, and I had a little robe made, and I wear my roxu. That's I've done Vipassana retreats, and I've done like a local semi-Vipassana retreats with the Balinese teacher. He's really great. I really like him.
Yeah, I heard that, and I think that's good. I think knowing other forms of Buddhism and being involved. My first residency was in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and there was Vipassana, Vajrayana, and Zen. So for 3.5 years, I practiced all three of them, and then I wound up going to Robert Aiken's group a little, you know, because our teacher came from that. And yeah,
did you go to Hawaii?
No, I didn't go to Hawaii. I had one time I wanted to go to Hawaii because I had gone to Vermont after I stopped being a professor, and I went to the University of Vermont and I studied biodynamic farming and food systems, and so I wanted to go to Hawaii and be with the artist who has a farm. And then I wanted to go to Atkins, but then I wound up getting sideways, and I went to Green Gulch. Yeah, I even got a job offer for farming in Hawaii. I got a job offer to farm in Hawaii. So at one time, that was going to be my next step. But then I wound up, Vermont had a connection to Green Gulch.
Oh.
So Vermont had a connection to Green Gulch because the program is related to Santa Cruz.
Oh.
And Santa Cruz had the same influences from the same men of that generation. And so that's what, and so at Vermont, they gave me, the book, it's a famous little farm book from Green Gulch. And they gave me that book, and then they introduced me to the one from Green Gulch. I'm sorry, I'm not remember, Wendy
Johnson, yeah.
Exactly. So they said go to Green Gulch and do their farming because you're a Buddhist. Because I was studying with Vermont Buddhist group there, and so I just got redirected. And then when I was in San Francisco, I continued to talk to Hawaii, and I continued to get information. And I know, like 2 years ago, before I left San Francisco Zen Center, I was then again talking to Robert Aiken's group in Hawaii because I thought smaller sangha would be good for me. But now I'm kind of disrobed, if you will, But I do miss, like I say, I miss the monastic life of being in robes from dusk to dawn and all that stuff. But you're right. I had it.
What year did you first come to San Francisco Zen Center? Was that through the farming thing? Was that when it started?
I first came to, and I think it was because I think I left being a professor like 2007. So I think I got to Green Gulch about 2012. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Because in Vermont, I went from the University of Vermont biodynamic food system certificate program, and then I stayed in Vermont, and I had a microgreens house, microgreen house, and I sold microgreens to Burlington wealthy businesses and things like that. So I have a lot connected with Buddhism and their structure as far as ecology and as far as food systems and being, most of the modern day food system beliefs is about eating locally and knowing where your food comes from is very Buddhist. We say our meal chant, and it's exactly what we were teaching at University of Vermont. So in very many different ways, it was just the natural place to go. Yeah. Kind of odd, but yeah, I'm glad I did it.
We had some organic farmers from Vermont staying with us here
Really?
a few months ago. And I've got very close friends here that have a home in Vermont, and the wife is there. I'll talk to you later about all of them. I don't want to bring up a new subject, but you might know some of those people. Huh?
I know. I feel like we could go forever. It's like
Yeah.
I visualize, it's either at a restaurant or at a bar, and we're just, doing our thing. So I'm really, I'm really grateful for it. Yeah. And and because in some way it sounds like you were kind of a maverick of independence with a collective group who stayed within. Some of those priests that you're talking about are still active and still leading and still bringing in new people, and so you're just on a different. You just, your influence is your way, and I think that's what's happening with me. I hope I can have some. Yeah, it's because once it's in you, I think.
That's how Suzuki said. Oh, this is one of the chapters in Tassajara Stories, is about Suzuki's talk on once the eyes of Buddhism get on you, you can't get away from them. And
I do, and yeah. And so, did you have? So you were raised Catholic, right?
No, not at all. No, more like New Thought Christianity, sort of like cosmic consciousness, mind only. Mind is perfect. Christian Science is out of New Thought. The Church of Religious Science. There's many types of New Thought. So Buddhism wasn't. Huh?
Didn't I you also hear you talk to somebody about psychedelics?
Oh, sure. Yeah. There's always talk about psychedelics. Good Lord. And that's really big these days. Hey, I want to say one thing. You mentioned Santa Cruz. Of course,
right.
Today on Cuke.com, I put on What's New that Paul Lee died. And Paul Lee was the key person at UC Santa Cruz who promoted Alan Chadwick, who got Alan Chadwick there, he and Richard Baker. He was one of Richard Baker's closest friends. I can think of two others that close.
Mm-hmm.
And he died at 91. I did a podcast with him, but if you go to that on What's New and look and just see all this stuff there is about Paul Lee. Hey, one thing I did is I contacted Peter Ford and said, "Hey, take let's get Paul's website. We take websites. We just get old websites."
Okay.
His ecotopia.org is great. And then Peter said it, and he said, "I think we've already got it." He said, I forget. But anyway, Paul Lee was a great person, and theologian, environmentalist, defender of the homeless, promoter of organic gardening, and really into chickens. He and Paige Smith, the great historian, at UC Santa Cruz, very famous story on American history. Paige and Paul both resigned from UC Santa Cruz. I think it was when Alan Chadwick, the gardener, had a falling out with the administration. But
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. But they still remain the go-to supreme university when it comes to training organic farmers and biodynamics. And
yeah,
they're still it's in Vermont. Just one University of Vermont craves to be, and they're kind of a sister program. But it's a small world when you think about it. When you get into Buddhism and the connections and well, thank you for letting me do that. Yeah.
I knew Alan. I met him in '67. He came to Tassajara when we first got it, and Richard Baker asked him to start the gardens at Tassajara. He was just starting the gardens at UC Santa Cruz. He couldn't do that. But
I hear you. Yeah.
I introduced myself to him. He was a Shakespearean actor. I think Paul called him a failed Shakespearean actor. Anyway, I went up to him at the pool and I said, "Mr. Chadwick?" He said, "Yes." I said, "My name is David Chadwick." He stood up, he said, "Well, then certainly, sir, we are related." And I was work leader at Green Gulch when he came there to start the gardens. He lasted like a year, and, Dick Baker just, kept him there as long as he could. But Alan, he's a good guy to start something, but he'll drive administration crazy,
Right. Right.
So he died at Green Gulch, too. Anyway,
cool.
So you were at Zen Center from 2012 till?
2019.
Yeah, and why did you make your move then from the West Coast back to... Are you in Ohio again?
Yes, I am. I know. It's like, so I, those early morning bells at Tassajara in the weather, I fell and I injured myself. And so I had to leave. And I'm still in physical therapy for that. And it has impaired my walking, and it's impaired my, what do they call it, vertigo. So
Ooh.
I just have a lot of sensations that wasn't conducive to that environment. But
did you fall down doing the wake-up bell?
well, no. I used to love doing the wake-up bell, right? Running through that village. Woo!
Oh yeah, me too.
I used to love it. But it was a time when I was working. It was during the summer. What do they call it? The bag lunch, right?
Yeah.
And it was a new group, and not everybody knew what they were doing. And I wound up getting up earlier than the bell, and set things up for us. And in doing that, I was in the lower barn and the upper barn, and on the side of the creek. And the door and the patio had a great defect in not meeting each other. And I went out and I fell down, and I just it's pitch dark, you know how it is, and I just fell right down. My legs just collapsed on me. And when I thought I was getting better, it happened again, and this time it was on the second roll down. And you know how that's everybody's, let's run to the Zendo.
Second roll down, you should be in the Zendo when that happens.
Well, I know, but I had already been bag lunch, you know what I mean? And then I was going there, but then I got run over by all these big people, because it seems like the men there are gigantic, and I fell again. So I am doing better. I'm not walking without a cane anymore.
No, you're walking You're not walking with a cane anymore.
Right. That's gone, and the only thing that really is dominant is the vertigo, where I
Describe it. Describe your vertigo.
Well, the vertigo is that my vertigo is that so I live in a pretty big house that has a lot of edges, and even though I walk in the same vicinity, I get dizzy just turning a corner, and it feels like the walls are coming out at me. And the doctors are saying that I don't, is that there's something that goes on with my eyes. It's like I'm afraid to look down. I have to constantly looking forward. I'm just looking straight ahead, and I'm not, my eyes and my legs aren't going, and so I seem to walk into walls, and I seem to, if I turn
pardon me.
If I turn around, I know, just imagine me in Kinhan, I just was dangerous.
Now, I want to go back to this, where your eyes are.
Mm-hmm.
Say it again. You were looking down and you should look forward, or you were looking forward and you should look down, or what?
Well, it's just that my body and my visual isn't connected together.
Oh.
It's I constantly I can we work a lot on physical therapy because my body's just gotten so tense and so nervous, and so I have drills right now for the vertigo where, I have to keep something in front of me, and then I have to move my head at different sequences and then try to see if I get dizzy, or then they make me sit down, and then they make me get up without any assistance, and then I kind of, look like I'm drunk, and so they make me do a lot of exercises, and a lot of it makes it feel like you're taking a sobriety test, like touch your nose, and then walk backwards and all that.
Well, let me guess. Uh-huh. I'm guessing you're 67.
No, I'm younger. Not much younger, but I'm younger.
Well, just because you said you were 20 years old when you were doing that work with deinstitutionalization.
Right,
that was like mid-70s is when I became aware of that.
Yeah, well, I graduated from college in 79, and then I went right from college, because I graduated in 3 years, and went right from college, and I started college at the age of, 17 or 16, and I started, and where were we going with this? So I was kind of the baby in the Ohio State, and then the national realm, I was just... And so, no, I'm how old am I? I'm 64.
64.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason why I say your group has always been ahead of me is I was raised on the cusp of Buffalo University. And so their students were our teachers, subs, and they would train there. And so I really I think that I'm really aware of your age group's culture because it dominated our neighborhood, and it dominated our schools. So I think that I feel like I've been overshadowed by your age group, but I do feel very familiar with it. Maybe I sound older. I don't know.
No, you don't. You sound younger. You sound very young.
Well,
yeah.
That could be called immaturity.
Oh, baloney.
No. I'm very happy with
yeah.
I'm very happy. I remember telling Ed, who was my teacher, Ed, the abbot, he was also my teacher, and I remember him telling him during one ceremony, it was a ceremony where you had to ask a question, and then, he'd answer it, and I said that I'm just, I have great compassion for myself, but I overwhelm myself. And he just started laughing because he knew what I was saying, and so I think in some ways I still, I get, I love to do things, and that's probably what makes me sound kind of younger, because I still, I want to do everything. And
good.
My eyes.
Keep doing it.
Like I say, my master's was on liberal religion, And I do hope that at some point I can do, an academic worthy, peer-reviewed article on Southern Buddhism. And your material, I'll be referencing a lot. So I hope that we can keep in contact.
Oh,
and
definitely.
Okay, and whatever I gather from you, either directly or indirectly, it will show up on my screen, because I'm really grateful that I've been able to have this online sangha, and it's connected me with you, and I get to decide where it's going to go. And I do hope I do want to sit a sesshin sometime this year, even if I have to sit in a chair. I want that feeling of a 7-day or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You sit any way you can. I mean, don't think of the sitting as the important thing. It's good to have some period. I like to start the day with it. After I have some hot water and maybe clean up the kitchen a little, of just not moving and just being still. Just being still. That's all, in whatever way you can.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it is. Like when you mentioned about doing the kitchen, I swear that in the morning, my body is like a toss of heart cleaning up the coffee area. Do you remember that in the morning? Everybody would run to the coffee, and and it reminds me of or being up early in the morning to make breakfast.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's like I feel my body is moving in the way that you do, and it's different when you're in practice, especially when you're in that cluster.
Yeah.
And so I do think that I have enough natural senses in the practice that come back, like you say, with stillness or how we do our morning routine. And I'm really and then I know that one of my sites, I show visuals about home altars, and trying to show people that everybody has a home altar when you look at the family collection of pictures. And yes, I think everything, the stillness and the routines, they're right there with you once you then tapped by Buddhism. It stays with you.
Yeah,
and it allows you to be who you are, because you're an original, right? You're an original.
Well, we're all originals.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is that, some people are really good at being in institutions, and supporting that large formal body. And then the forest monks, that type of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Mm. Anyway, I want to go back to this. There is nothing can get in the way of your practicing Zazen. All you have to do is be alive. I mean, if no matter what the problem is, it's just you with that problem. But I was just reading a great thing Shanti David said. It was like, who wrote the Guide to Being a Bodhisattva, or whatever it's called. And he said, and I really liked what he said, because he really put himself in, he really described himself in a way that everybody could relate to. He said, when I get deluded thoughts about this or that, blah, 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 I become still as a piece of wood. And then there were like 4 verses like that. Every one, last one, and every one of them was talking about, your mind getting into lower places, or distracted, or being petty or egotistical. So here's this great teacher saying, when that happens to me, I become still like a piece of wood. So I really like that, because he didn't put himself above others. He put himself square where others were and just said, here's what you do. I really like that. Well, we've come a long way. Now I know more about you than Soto's Zen Warrior. And
Yeah, right.
your so it's how's it written? Instagram Soto Zen Warrior. Neat name.
Yeah.
And
Well,
are you on any other? You're not on Facebook as Soto Zen Warrior.
Yeah. No, I'm on Facebook as Accidental Buddhist because my post transferred to there, and then I have my own.
Oh, you're Accidental Buddhist. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then I have my own Facebook type of thing. So I'm pretty much on all of them, but Instagram is really my Sangha place. But the reason why I chose the warrior is because I think of all the ancient positions and hierarchy, I felt that I was more of the warrior class than anything else.
All right.
So
well,
I should let you go to sleep. And
yeah.
Thank you for this. I feel like I've gotten to know you better, not as intimidated as you might think. So thank you, and hopefully we'll cross paths, and I'll get to know some of your people. You'll get to know some of mine, and I support you 100% in what you're doing.
Well, the feeling's mutual. I'm really happy we got to talk, and I got to know you better, and so we'll be seeing more of you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in good company. Thank you. Well, enjoy your sleep and your quiet time alone.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go rake the leaves. Beautiful
Go
weather.
rake the leaves. Yeah, I do that in the morning.
Yeah, it's beautiful. All right. Well, thank you for this, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. All right. My pleasure. Take care.
Bye.
All right.
You too. Bye, David.
Bye-bye. So thank you very much, Annette Lorenzo. That's quite interesting there. I'll be following you on Soto Zen Warrior on Instagram and see what you do and whatever else you do. Who knows what you're going to get into. And I'm sure you'll put a lot of good energy into it. This has been a Cuke Audio Podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur with Dogga Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.